Growing up with abuse, neglect, invalidation can leave a person with a big hole inside where love was supposed to be. And it can create enormous hurdles when we grow up and try to find true love and someone to spend our lives with. Today, I'm providing one on one coaching to Indy Nile, who is a drag artist and storyteller based in Amsterdam. And we're going to talk about his quest for true love. What drew you to reach out to me today?
Well, I think the algorithm was our Cupid. It really decided that I should discover your work because it's funny. Before you, I was listening to another channel, Dr. Ramani. But I reached a point where I was like, okay, I got enough of what you're saying, and it reached a point where she got me to the awareness of things that are in my past that I don't like. But then I started to just get angry when I listened to the videos. I was like, I need something else. I don't want to dwell on the past anymore. I get it. I get the pieces of the puzzle. And I was ready for, okay, what do I do now? Somehow your videos just popped up. I don't know, just YouTube decided. And I just binged on them. And yeah, the CPTSD makes a whole lot of sense. And how you can, yeah, sometimes your reactions don't make sense. You overreact when you shouldn't, and you underreact when you should be reacting. And that kind of like everything. And yeah, yes, I think that's how it started.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. I think that when, YouTube gives me a list of what channels my audience watches, hers is number 1. She's really popular with my audience. And that's what I feel like she primes everybody with, "Here's what may have happened to you."
Exactly, exactly. Yeah,
And then people can come over to my channel to learn some practical strategies for what to do about your feelings about it today. So,
yeah,
yeah. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. It's now what kind of a this
Mhm.
is where I'm at in my life. Like, so now what do I do?
Yeah.
And I do want to have healthy relationships beyond just romantic, but also friendships. And it's starting to happen for me, but I feel it's still very conscious. It's not very natural. It's like, it's very intellectual still, my understanding, and I want it to be in my system more organic, I suppose. Or
So this for you, the challenge right now is about healthy romantic relationships or
absolutely.
or one relationship. Is your desire to find the one?
Yeah, yeah, because and I've been so good at compartmentalizing. I guess being gay, maybe that helps. Sex is so easy, and everyone around you has it so easily. So you think, okay, yeah, so fun and sex and all of that is separate, and yeah, or you enter in a relationship and it's open and everything is free. But I don't want that actually. And one of your videos where you were saying that you want to yeah, be in a loving relationship with one person, you want to say without any shame that you want someone to love you and take care of you and nurture you. And I was like, yes, yes, that is what I want.
Yeah, you may have heard me say, it's very rare that I find somebody who was traumatized as a kid who feels comfortable saying that that's what they want. I know not everybody wants that at any given time, but if your heart's desire is to find the one and to be married, that the word married comes very hard to people sometimes that they feel like it's something they can't have. And if you're gay, there's a historical reason why that was a hard thing to claim and own. But now you can. And to be able to want that openly and maybe even date wearing it on your sleeve is something that can be very, very hard for people who were not loved properly as kids.
Yeah, big time. I went to a party this last weekend with my friends, and it was a gay party with like drag queens performing, and in gay parties, like everybody's high and everything, and there's these rooms where people can do stuff and all that kind of stuff. But it was not exciting to me at all. I was just like, I want to be home and cuddle with someone, but I just kept dancing for like 6 hours, just being in my own thing, and I was like, yeah, what I want is really different from what it was 5 years ago, and I'm ready for that. And yeah,
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. I hit that place too. Um, Great, we had our experience, right?
yeah,
We know what we're missing when we
yeah,
when we find it. So what have your relationships been like in the past?
yeah. That's a good one. I've actually, in a way, unconsciously, I've been very good at protecting my heart. So I've only had one relationship. It was a long-term one for 8 years with a wonderful guy, but I felt no attraction to him. I just loved him as a best friend, as a partner. We made films together. We did so many things together, but I was not even looking for love at that point. I was like, okay, you're a great partner. Roommate maybe is very reductive, but it was more than that. He was an amazing, companion. But I was not ready for it. And when I realized that that's what I wanted, so I decided, okay, I want to be out of that relationship. But then I was like, then what? And I've been single since then because I don't like to jump into relationships. But to answer your question, I've just been with one person seriously, and sometimes I think of him. I try to reach out to him, but like maybe in a kind of pathetic way to restart something. But I know I don't want that with him. I just want it. I'm looking forward to being with someone, even like arguing in a healthy way, figuring out things in a healthy way, not going off the handle, which is what I've always been doing. And yeah,
Yeah, well, I wanna ask you about that, like, what ends up breaking your heart, and how do you end up self-sabotaging? Can you tell me a little bit about that part of the story?
yeah, the self sabotage. Yeah, I'm an expert in picking out those straight guys that are bi curious but are just like using me for attention. Married guys, the unavailable men. That's how I've always been self destructing. But it's almost like nothing ends up hurting me because I've never opened my heart for anyone for it to be hurt. So I hurt myself like for just shutting out and being alone. And I always used weed was my best friend and companion for so long. And now that I quit that, I feel like more connected to my friends, and I feel like, oh, what would it be like to be connected with a? Because in my relationship with that guy, I was like smoking weed from the second I woke up till I slept. So I was in a way absent
Mhm.
from that relationship, and yeah,
I call that spackle. Do you know that word in English?
no,
It's that when you're getting ready to paint a wall, it's that stuff you put in the holes from nails, fill the
yeah,
wall.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Spackle,
yeah,
you're just filling in holes.
yeah,
So it
yeah,
looks like there's no hole,
uh-huh,
and and I think weed is a form of spackle.
mhm.
It also might have been your form to, like, regulate PTSD symptoms.
Okay, yes.
Um,
Self-medicating, you mean, kind of, in a sense.
what's
Self-medicating, right?
self-medicate, some people use it as a, like, as a anti-anxiety, some people use it as to just numb out. And, my big drug of choice was cigarettes, and for me, they were very regulating. For me, it was so hard to quit smoking because, I didn't have a word for what dysregulation was, but I was very dysregulated a lot of the time, and smoking is how I kinda pulled my brain together. And now we know, like, there's a chemical element of that, but also, like, the ritual of, like, going outside, and taking deep drags off a cigarette and the your nervous system is getting that, like, re-regulation. But there's a big chemical element to it too with nicotine, interacting with your brain chemistry. So for me, it was a regulating thing, and it was hard to quit because I would get dysregulated, and when I'm dysregulated, I'm so raw, and so people can hurt my feelings this much, and I get this upset, which makes life unlivable, it's just too hard, so I would always keep going back to it. So, I don't know, I was just curious, like, with weed, what did it do for you that you had to do for
I would
yourself
say
after
I
that?
would say I would say numbing out. When you said that, that really
Mhm.
clicked. It wasn't because I was actually making me more anxious in the long run. I mean, yeah, maybe it killed the anxiety for 5 seconds, but it was making me, first of all, overreact and being paranoid and hypersensitive. So it was making me a much more anxious person, but it was definitely helped me be numb, which is something I probably needed as a kid,
Mhm, mhm.
and it was helpful at that time.
Yeah,
But it's
yeah,
numbed out everything. Yeah.
yeah, thank God for numbness,
Yeah.
because now we have, like, intact spirits. It's like something in us knew what to do to just, like, stop, no more trauma. I'm numbing out now and
Mhm.
just,
Yeah,
like, keep
yeah,
us safe in a little egg.
yeah.
Little
Well,
egg of
me, it took
safety
me
so we could
months.
come out now.
Yeah, yeah,
But now we're like five-year-olds learning how to self-regulate, how to deal with
exactly.
not having it be our turn and
It's so funny you say that. I feel like a teenager emotionally.
Yeah, yeah.
Even I've learned how to draw boundaries with, let's say, my mother, and I'm really like a teenager, like, "You can't talk to me this way. You have to do this, you have to do that." And I feel like, "Oh my,
Yeah.
this is not embarrassing what I'm doing," but I'm
Yeah.
just learning how to, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something we have to accept in ourselves, though, because it's a phase of development we didn't get to have. You know, if you didn't get to do
Right.
that when you were 13, sooner or
Right.
later, if you're going to have a good relationship with her and the world, you're gonna have to set some boundaries, and then they come out all rough at first, like, "No,
Yeah.
no, I will not watch that movie. I'm no I
Yeah, yeah,
don't like
exactly, yeah.
this."
Why aren't
Yeah.
they listening? A big thing for me is people not listening to me. That's a big
Yes.
hurt, injury thing. Like, why aren't you listening to my feelings? I told
Mhm.
you I'm upset. I told you I don't wanna do this. And I become really like a child when it comes to that stuff.
Yeah. So, random question here, but so your family is from
Well, my mother is, Lebanese. My father, who passed away a long time ago, he was Palestinian, so I'm kind of a mixed Arab, and I grew up in Dubai. It's kind of
okay,
an Arabic cocktail in a sense.
Arabic cocktail.
But
And for your
yeah.
parents, how was it that you were gay?
Funny, it was okay. My dad, when I look back on it, who I was rejecting when he was alive, he was always trying to help me come out. Funny enough, like he would always be like, "Oh, I found this little magazine. I found this little movie in your closet." And I'd be like, "Oh, I don't want to talk to you." I was more like on mom's team because they were kind of like a little bit separate, and my mom, who neither of my parents are religious, but she's very much like men are this way and women are this way. So I kind of like took that on. And funny enough, like when I do drag now, I'm obsessed with like playing men and women. But now I treat it as a joke, and I love that. But being gay has been okay. I kind of yeah. If you asked me this 10 years ago, it would have been kind of an issue, but I've kind of accepted it within myself and I kind of like myself now as this way. So, yeah, it's all right. Especially, I act around my extended family like very normally. I just talk about guys and I don't even, so everyone kind of just follows suit and we just act like nothing is weird, I guess.
Mhm. So, do you think something happened that ended up wounding you in that attachment, that ability to have a loving relationship? Did something happen? And you don't have to go into deep detail, but
Oh, many things. Yeah, I think my relationship with my mom, basically, both my parents in their different ways. The love they have, they gave me plenty, but their love was always about praise and how great I was and how I have to fulfill their unrealized dreams. So it's very much achievement driven because I craved that so much. I was always, yeah, I'll do it. I'll be the best at school. I'll say the best thing. I'll dress the best way. So I'm very used to that kind of love that is about how things I can do and accomplish, not just me just being here, sitting, breathing, and sitting in this chair, and that I'm enough. That's the kind of love I guess that I want. But I still, this goes back to what you asked me about self-sabotage. I still kind of indirectly self-sabotage with this thing where I try to impress people that I want to be with, perform, just constantly being like a clown, like overachiever. I'm like, no, but that is gonna get the wrong people, but I don't know then where the balance is because I love creating art and good things, but I don't want people to like me just for that. I want someone to like me for me, but I don't even know what that is, to be honest.
yeah, yeah, that's
Yeah.
totally what healing is about, is becoming ourselves, and the people come into place as we go. Have you started losing friends yet because of your healing?
Oh, hell yes. And I watched your video a couple of days ago, and I was like, okay, this makes sense. But I've lost so many friends.
It's hard.
It's painful,
It's a
painful.
hard part of healing. I
Yeah.
do you tend to have you had to do the rejecting sometimes? Have you been rejected?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. Like, there's been relationships that ended with big talks, but some have just like they've actually lost interest in being my friend as well. Like, because kind of videos I post, the things I talk about, how I behave, and uh, yeah,
You being yourself. Yeah, I
yeah,
feel
basically,
like well, I've noticed that there's also like becoming ourselves and starting to express stuff that might be disagreeable to other people. That's part of it. But also just not being so effed up anymore. It's as if we have agreements with people that we never like realized we made. It's like, you be effed up, I'll be effed up. And we'll
yeah,
sit home all weekend together and smoke weed and watch TV, and we won't hassle each other about what that means
exactly,
about our lives, you know?
exactly,
And
exactly,
and then you
exactly.
break the agreement. and they don't like you anymore, and they find some excuse and they criticize something about you,
Mm.
your
Yeah.
performance is no good or what,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but
Yeah,
it's not really about that.
for me, they call me, "Oh, like, you're being Oprah now. Oh, Oprah," because like, it's kind of it's a jab at, like, trying to heal myself
Uh-huh.
and, like, "Oh, stop, like, who do you think you are?" Kind of like, yeah. Here goes
Yeah.
Oprah, big
Who do
one.
you think you are? Yeah. Yeah, it's like, well, I think who I am is. That's a
Yeah.
powerful thing to say, "Well, who I am is." And we can't we just I don't think it's possible to be really happy. I mean, that my parents were, like, 60s and 70s parents, and they taught me this idea, like, you've gotta be free to be yourself, but it was more like just being free was the point of it all. But I
Okay,
think
yeah.
what I've learned in my healing is that it's not just about the freedom is the path, not the destination. The destination is to bring our gifts into the world because the world suffers for every person who's not able to do that right now. And we suffer because we know we're capable of so much more. And that feeling when you wake up at 3 in the morning and you're just like, another wasted day. I hate this. I hate
Yeah.
this. My life is passing me by. That's where that's coming from, is knowing that you're meant for more and not being able to access it. And for so many of us, we can't access it because of the dysregulation, because of the emotional pain we're in, because of the, screwed up relationships that we built for ourselves and it wasn't what we wanted and we weren't
I
able
have
to
to tell
be
you,
honest and we don't even know.
yeah, dysregulation has been a big thing, from your videos that I learned that I didn't even know that term. And funny enough, I had something similar as to what we were doing a few years ago, but I wasn't ready for it. There was this psychiatrist who hired me as a filmmaker to make a YouTube video about her service. She's like, "Why don't we do a mock therapy session?" So we did this mock therapy session where, yeah, I was acting like a patient, and the first thing that came up was all my mommy issues, basically. But what she told me was so dysregulating, and after I heard your videos, I started thinking she almost like just filled my brain with so many things, and then I just went out walking the street. I'm like, what am I gonna do with all these feelings? She told me this one line. She's like, until your relationship with your mother is healed, you can't be healed. I was like, damn, girl, that's intense, and didn't know what to do with that. And she even, I remember, felt bad because she sent me a message. She's like, did I destabilize you with what I said? She was really nice about it, but I think it just happened so spontaneously. But I was walking around the streets wondering what's happening. And that was the beginning actually of me realizing, oh, there's something actually not healthy in my bond with my mother. And that could be the root of a lot of things. And yeah,
And it
but I,
showed up as dysregulation.
yeah, completely. Yeah. I was
Mhm.
just so scared and my system was all over the place and I didn't know what to do with that information.
Yeah, dysregulation was a missing puzzle piece for me, and anybody who watches my videos, I talk about it a lot, and a lot of people resonate with the videos because it's the missing piece for them too. Like trying to access healing modalities, going to therapy. Therapy was entirely dysregulating for me, and if somebody had said that to me, like I have to heal my relationship with my mom to heal, well, that's not possible. So,
Exactly.
had a lot
Exactly. Yeah.
my mom died 30 years ago, and it's not gonna be possible to heal that relationship, and yeah, and so and I do, and yet I heal, so there. But but, um, but the dysregulation of the way my mind just sort of, like, crumbles, my focus falls apart, my body gets all stressed, and I used to feel shame about the dysregulation symptoms. I'd sit in therapy sessions and just be, like, trembling, or I couldn't feel my hands and things like that. And the thing is, I mean, I did end up talking about it, but it just wasn't something that was understood back then. And unless people had it themselves, they just didn't know. They didn't know. Like for normal people, I guess, having somebody to talk to about this stuff just feels instantly relieving, but it doesn't for me. It feels agitating.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. It's almost like just wallowing. I don't know if self-pity is the right word, but yeah, it feels weird to just be talking about what happened to you all the time, right?
Yeah, well, that's the other thing is talking about what happened. Could I could talk forever. So much happened, like you. So much
Exactly.
happened. So much happened, and I could take up 3 years, paying a lot of money and showing up, and then never deal with the fact that I had some, like, terrible habit, or, that I was seeing unavailable men, or something that was really just self-sabotage. And while we may be able to trace the origins of this behavior to childhood wounds, like, right now, it's not gonna change unless, like, we deal with this right now.
Yeah.
So that's the lovely thing, is when we can realize that we have any role in it at all, even if it was only like 20% of the problem, that's great, because if you can heal that 20%, often the rest of it will fall away. And so that's what I'm about, is trying to help you focus. Okay, what's happening with you? Like, where does that weird decision come in for you to give your emotional energy and basically that precious part of you that you have. Y Sometimes I talk about this, and it's a weird old-fashioned word, troth. Do you know this English word?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
from, like, Shakespeare. You give your troth to somebody, and it's like that precious part of you that is only given to somebody in a c
Yeah.
in that level of
It's
commitment of marriage.
beautiful, actually, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and so, from your own description, you've been guarding that really carefully. You've never given it to anybody. You have it to give. And it's a very precious thing to give, that somebody would really be very honored, and, it would completely be life transformative to have that given to them. And so, if we had to do it by numbing or drugs or whatever, we preserve that sacred part of us, and then we heal enough that we can bring it forward to the right person. So how do we do that? And so the first part of it is to start to be aware. And, usually people come to me when they've just had a relationship disaster. Their heart got broken. They're like, the same pattern happened again. And I just can never see it coming. And I just, I know exactly how it is, and I can help you, just find it. Like, where did that decision get made? And where do you maybe have to come into, like, super regulation and slow yourself down so that you don't go down one of those paths again. And because that's what's going to stop you from getting into that great love of your life, is spending all your time and energy on these side gigs.
The good news is that I've stopped with the side gigs, and there's been one, yeah, yeah, but I just don't know how to have a main gig.
Oh.
Yeah, so the side gigs, I can see them coming from a mile away. I'm like, okay, this is trouble, and we're gonna stay away. But it's funny now when you were talking about the throat, it just an image came to me, and you asked me where my hurt is. I feel like just as you were talking, I'm like, my thing is I'm a caretaker. I'm a natural like giver, and I've been so afraid because I was such a parentified child that I will not take care of anyone, because no one is gonna suck that out of me anymore, and it just depleted me, and I'm so afraid to give it. But I think that's my biggest strength, and I see it in how I care for animals, and I love children, and I'm just so afraid, like if I take care of someone, they might leave me, or I don't know what, they'll just take everything and go, or I don't know what's the fear there, but
Do you think you ever, took care of people, for reasons other than natural love of your heart? Were you trying to get something or bargain, or
yeah, to be honest, yes. Yes.
I think I think love has a sturdiness to it, so when that caretaking comes out of love and a genuine desire to help somebody, it has a sturdiness to it that doesn't tend to damage anybody. But when it's done out of, and everybody, we all do it. Duty, people pleasing,
Yeah, exactly.
manipulation.
Yeah,
I'll do this for you, and you be my boyfriend,
yeah,
or
yeah,
you'll
yeah.
approve of me,
Oh my
and
god, that was my relationship with my ex, actually. Yes, yes, yeah,
yeah, so we all do it. It's just to be forgiven now. It's just to be utterly forgiven. Like, if we're just learning how to love here, and it was a good guess. It was a good guess that if we gave them a lot, love would
yeah,
bloom. But now we have to be, like, even more honest than that, and giving is good. And when right before I got married, the person who was advising my husband and me just said, this is a service position." And
wow.
and your job is to help him. And I was like, "Oh, that sounds really sexist." And he's like, "Don't worry, I told him the same thing." You know? But it got through to my heart. Like, that was a really new thing from anything I'd learned in my culture, that if I'm gonna marry this person and he's gonna, like, devote his troth to me, and I give it to him, and what that means is for each other. And of course we fail, really. I'm not trying to be on a high horse here, but we aim to really be, like, the best friend, the other person ever had, is somebody who's, "I've got your back, I believe in you. When you don't believe in yourself, I'm here, I'm constant, and my job is to help you be the best person you can be."
That's
And if 2
beautiful.
people are doing that for each other, and I'll also throw in a piece that we got, which we haven't gotten to yet, but I just feel it necessary to say to sort of clarify this picture that I'm giving is what we were advised is when we said, "We think we wanna get married, how do we know?" And one of the criteria was, do you find yourself stepping up and becoming a better person as a result of being in each other's lives? And that's a good
Mm,
sign. We've all been with that guy who we are ashamed of who we've become. So
yeah,
that's not a call to marriage.
yeah,
That's a side gig. That's a side thing.
yeah.
But that's one thing that you want, that you'll begin to be shown signs of somebody. Not only will you love them and be attracted to them, and, you had that 8-year relationship, and I think that's normal and safe and developmentally appropriate to have, a non-sparky relationship that's just safe to get through youth,
Oh my God, yeah.
Good for
That's
you,
such
you did it.
a good way to put it. Yes, it was safe.
Yeah.
It was really safe. Yeah,
Yeah, you needed to be safe, and we're not,
yeah.
when our romantic drive is out of control and taking us into, the jaws of death and insanity, which I'm not exaggerating,
Uh-huh.
that's where these terrible relationships can go, and when we're at risk of that, it's really great to stay safe and to learn to love a little bit and practice and have a friend. Like, that's a friendship is basically what you're describing. And
Yeah,
ultimately, that's what a marriage is too. It's a friendship. It's a friendship that has this je ne sais quoi of
yeah.
like it's like a rubber band, and you just keep feeling drawn back to that person.
But then do you think it is important, obviously, that it should be more than just a friendship, that there should be that spark, that attraction, that sexual chemistry, all that stuff, right? That's fair to want
Yeah.
as well. Right, yeah,
That's fair to want and to need, yeah, and
yeah.
as we get older, it's gonna be compromised enough, but I think that, like, being in love with somebody, the,
And
physical
exactly.
attraction and being in love with somebody, that mystery thing that happens, I do think it's important, and many people have succeeded without it in arranged marriages or, you know, it's not the only thing there is, and sometimes people are gonna find themselves in pretty decent friendships and marriages where the spark isn't there, and they're still gonna have a happy life, so not to judge any of that, but now that you're just sort of choosing your path forward, you haven't met this person yet, now is the time when you can write this down, and I actually do recommend you write down, like, what do you really want? What is your vision? And I would say, go ahead and write down, "I am madly in love with him, and he's madly in love with me, and it's a stable love." And
Oh my
we
God,
we
I'm
all
already
are.
too embarrassed to even write that down, but you're giving me permission, so thanks. Yes, yeah,
Yeah. No, you're
yeah.
nervous to write it down because there's always a chance of failure, and just accept that. Just say, "That's right, we don't always get what we want. This is not Amazon.com. This is just our heart's desire, and we're declaring our heart's desire." And
Yeah, exactly, exactly. It's funny, I do that with my career so easily. My friends are always like, "You always go after what you want with work. I'm so inspired by you." But like, I'm inspired by how easily you can get into relationships. Like, you let go of the fear, and yeah, it is about not caring whether you get it or not, right? It's about
yeah, well, I mean, we care, but
yeah,
we
yeah,
accept, like, the nature of life is we're gonna lose everybody and die, that's
yeah,
coming.
yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
and no matter how perfect the marriage is, what's built into it is that it will end through death, if nothing else. Part of the poignancy of love is that built into it is that it will end.
Fuck yeah, that's wow. That's I think that's what when you put it that way, that the ending, that's another fear is that yeah, because I even have
Mhm.
it about my cat. I'm wondering, she's already 4 years old. I'm like, okay, she's gonna die in 8 years. How am I gonna handle it, and what's gonna
Yeah.
happen? And so with another person, it's probably even scarier.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, and so let's think practically about that for a minute. Let's say you fall madly in love and you have this amazing marriage for 10 years, and your whole life is different, and you're hanging out on a beautiful island in Greece on your holiday
yeah.
together,
Say more,
and
Anna.
he has a
Yes,
and
yes.
he gets hit by a bus, you know, and
Oh
you
shit.
lose
Yeah.
him. And what will set you up for your life to continue to be happy after a period of grieving, of course, and despite grieving that will never end, I'm sure, on some level. But what will set your life up to be happy and strong?
After something like that happens, you
After
mean?
you lose, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. It's a very good question. I mean, I guess I want to answer with the cliche of like self-love and being by myself, or I don't know. I don't know how to answer that. I,
Well, some things that I think about for myself are friends. I should really maintain friends. I should have friendships that will exist whether I have a husband or not, and not just couple friends and not just his friends, but my friends. And I should take care that I still have those.
that's a good
And I
one.
should have things that I love to do. Like I love taking walks. I love going over to San Francisco and walking around and looking at all the old buildings, and I love hiking in the hills, and I just love that. And if I still have friends who do that with me, then even if I end up single one day, I'll have people who do things I love. I love having dinner parties. And so there's just things that I love to do, and being in a relationship, it's very tempting to just sort of give up on all of it and then get all enmeshed with that person, which by the way is not really healthy, you know. But what I'm pointing towards here is your boundary, your ultimate boundary about being able to cope with losing somebody. And I'm talking about boundaries in the two-way sense. It's you know, you've had a wall to keep somebody out, but for you to let that wall down, you need to know that you're going to be okay no matter what. That
Yeah,
you'll figure it out. You need to know that you're gonna be okay. And so being okay and knowing that you're gonna be okay takes practice, and
what
it's the
kind of
fun
practice?
part. Huh?
What kind of practice? Like, is it the friendships? Just going through friendships? Is that what you mean, or is it?
Well, one thing that you've told me about yourself is you're a performer,
Yeah,
and I would imagine you'll always be some kind of a performer, right?
yeah,
So that's really good. That's, like, gonna balance your ship, where no matter what happens in your life, you're gonna be a performer, and that's gonna be a source of joy and maybe
yeah,
income.
exactly.
Money is another thing to think about. I think getting into a couple can create this financial dependency where people end up staying in relationships that they really don't want to be in, but they can't see their way out. So that's another way you can prepare. And by um, being more confident financially, and, like in or out of relationships, most people alive today are struggling in that area of their life. But it's something that we don't wanna just, like, throw overboard getting into a relationship and go, "Who cares anymore? I found Mr. Right," I don't even care anymore. It's like, stay with it. Stay with all the things that keep your life healthy and balanced.
It's funny. All the things that you're saying are like we're having the conversation at the right moment because I've been doing these things. Like I'm really paying a lot of attention to my friendships, and I'm finally becoming business oriented or business minded in the sense that I want to be financially independent and make my passion for performing something commercially viable and stuff. So yeah, it's funny. Like everything, yeah, it makes sense what you're saying. I'm building that foundation that is there, whether that partner is there or not. But I do want that partner. And I have a question for you. How when you met your current partner, did it like, we're like, okay, was it is it I guess what I'm asking is, do you know it right away, or is it something that you build, or like what how did it feel for you?
For me, it was a bolt of lightning. For him, it took a long time.
Okay.
It was a very awkward thing. I just had a reunion with an aunt and uncle recently, and my uncle said, "So how did you meet?" Because I've only been married to my husband for a little less than 8 years, and we've been together for 13 or something. And I hadn't seen this uncle, and he has a new, wife, and well, 25 years, but we hadn't seen each other in so long, you know? And so we were telling each other the story of how we met, and so in my story, um, I was acquainted with him. We met in a 12-step meeting, Al-Anon, and he was this extraordinarily happy person in the room, and so I sort of thought, "Oh, there's a happy person," you know? I think that's nice. I'm glad he's in the meeting. And then one day it dawned on me, I'm gonna marry that guy.
Oh, wow.
And because of my history, I had to really distrust that idea.
Do you regret distrusting, or
It's
do you
not
think that
always
was thinking?
Yeah, that could have been magical thinking, and so I, connected with somebody who was the best mentor I could possibly think of having about this, who agreed to help me navigate this, and I just was like, "I think this is the one. He doesn't even know who I am yet. I need to talk to him, but I'm really afraid I'm gonna do it again. I'm gonna go, just use magical thinking to pursue some unavailable guy, and spackle it,
Yeah.
And, and so this guy sort of coached me through it, and it was really helpful, and for my husband, it came much later, a couple years into it, and it was very uncomfortable and painful for me to feel that way about him and not have it fully returned, so everything just went very slow, and I had children, and I did not wanna ever again bring some guy into my life that would my children would know and then have him leave my life. I didn't wanna do that again. So this time I was devoted to getting it right, but I felt really strongly about him the whole time, and it's interesting because now having been with him a long time, even in my worst moments when we're having an argument and I begin to have the thought like, "What was I ever thinking? This guy's awful." Uh, if I just sit with that feeling for a minute, within 5 minutes, that old feeling, that old je ne sais quoi comes back, that strong feeling I have for him of just I'm just drawn to him as my man. He's my man. And he's
Wow.
got it now for me, and I've tested it. I've as a person with CPTSD, I've made life very hard on him at times. I've been very unreasonable in the relationship. I've tried to push him away, and he's like, "I'm his woman. I'm his woman," and it's just the way it is.
That's amazing. But then, let's say if I'm trying to imagine being in a situation, because I relate so much to everything that you say in all your videos. So I feel like if I were in a situation like this, I would. What would make me stick through and not feel like let go of the abandonment wounds, basically, and
Mhm.
not feel rejected by the fact that he's not feeling that bolt of lightning. Like,
Yeah.
what made you not run away? Let's put it that way.
Well, one is I am just very bad at that. I have
Okay.
abandonment wounds, and so I won't leave, I'll stay too long and things. So that
Okay.
helped, but I was being coached, and that's why I coach other people now. I coach other people to try to give them a second perspective on stuff and help discern. The guy who coached me at a certain point, we all had dinner together, and, during this, like, couple years of dating, but not having it be committed at all yet, and we all had dinner together, and we actually had, like, a business issue to discuss, but secretly, my mentor and I was saying, "What do you think of this guy?" And so he had some skepticism about the slowness of everything, and now I chose somebody who I considered wise and experienced to advise me on this, and I was listening to his advice, and so afterwards when we were alone, I said, "Well," and he goes, "This guy loves you. He loves you. I think he can't access his love for you yet, but he loves you." And I
Oh
was
boy.
like, "Whoa, that sounds like the sort of thing I think when I'm with somebody who's never gonna come around." I totally was magical thinking. So I believe really strongly that if you're gonna do this, if you're gonna change your pattern, it's really important to have at least one person, if not a group of people, whose opinion you respect, whose journey you respect. Like maybe they don't have what you want yet, but their journey you respect and you can consult with them
Yeah.
about it and get a second opinion when you're thinking, should I leave? Should I cling? Should I? And the advice I got wasn't always what I thought I was going to get. And he kept saying, hang in there, hang in there. And also, for me, it helped having kids. The kids like, what's good for the kids is good for me, but in a way that I couldn't take care of myself, I would I would go, "Well, I would never want the kids to have a guy come and go." Well, I don't want that for me either, but I wasn't able to set that standard for myself. The kids kinda help me have treat myself as one of the family too, and have that standard too. And so if you don't have children right now, then remember the kid in you who needs to be protected too and needs a good person to be there and somebody who's safe and reliable
Yeah.
and so we need other people and then we have to have a way to deal with that inner voice. And you know me, I'm always talking about the daily practice. I use this writing technique to keep unpacking it. I read it to another person who also does it. When I first got started, I read all the time. But that was another way to get that like second opinion about things and mostly just sort of like encouragement to be like, good, good, you got free of that, that terrible thought, good.
Yeah.
Or or, you know, "Well, that's interesting, Anna. It sounds like you're rationalizing another, you know, terrible decision," or, you know,
Yeah.
a buddy doesn't have to be somebody who criticizes you. You have to really trust somebody to let them talk to you that way. But my mistakes had become so terrible and so, like, tragic that and for the sake of my kids too, I just could not see making any more mistakes. I was willing to be single forever rather than keep going down those painful roads. And I just made a decision. I just made a decision that I would do whatever it took to do it differently. And I was already in my early 40s.
This is where I'm
Yeah.
at. I turned
Yeah.
42 on Saturday.
Yeah. Well, there you go. It's a good time. It's a good time to finally honor yourself and what your heart's desire
Yeah,
really is and to quit
yeah,
messing around.
exactly. Is it fair then to say, just hearing you say all that, when you have CPTSD, is it like having a mentor or a coach helping in the discernment is vital, you think? Because sometimes we can't really trust our
Yeah. Yeah, mentor, coach, or trusted friend.
yeah,
That we can't figure things out for ourselves. That's the whole CPTSD is a wound to our connection ability. But the more I've coached people and the more that I've done my own growth, I'm like, gosh, it's just not realistic to think we're gonna figure this out by ourselves.
yeah.
We our habitual thinking and our self-attacks and stuff is just too loopy.
And it's very story driven, especially I don't know because also being a performer and a writer and stuff. I love stories, so I'm always
Yeah.
like judging things and myself and people and just labeling everything like, oh, this is who I'm gonna be for the rest of my life. And
Yeah.
sometimes even my friends would be like, oh, hold on, that sounds nice, but that doesn't make any sense. Like
There's that positive story, and then there's also the tragic story that we get
yeah,
so used to telling that we can no longer see, like, actually, we have a choice today about this. We're not defined by what happened to us. It's not the end of the story. And, I think that happens to people a lot is they get very stuck in the story. A lot of, approaches to treating trauma have to do with telling the story, and I just noticed that consequently, there's a lot of people stuck there. And
yeah,
what's really needed is ways it's like, "Okay, now what?" Like you said, "Now what?"
yeah.
And to begin to the again, your magic superpower is the stuff that you're doing to re-traumatize yourself.
Oh
That's
wow.
that's your super gold because that's the part you can change. You cannot change other people. I'm sure you've tried. We none of us can time travel, so we can't go back and change the past. But those things that we're doing to re-traumatize ourselves, even if they're a fraction of what the pain is about, sometimes that's all you need is a fraction to get that shift you need, to change your pattern and start doing something differently. And
Yeah.
people feel it. My concept of cab light or the concept, I didn't invent this concept, a cab light.
No, tell me.
So when you're emotionally available, it's a metaphor for a light that's on. Your
All
cab
right.
light, like a taxi when there's nobody in
Yeah,
it and they can take a passenger, their light is on. So your cab light's on. You can think of that like, "Is my cab light on?" And you know how that is sometimes, like, you just can't get a date for the life of you, and then sometimes you're just, like, hitting them off with sticks, you know? Like,
yeah,
why
yeah,
is that? It's like
yeah.
your light is shining. And the way our light shines is we start to clear up. We clear up, first of all, entanglements with people who are not really relationships, the people we hold on to just because there's a little feeling there from one person or the other, and it's comforting, and we just, like, cut that off, just to, like, prepare yourself, have a certain kind of, um, monastic preparation
Yeah.
to meet the one, and to so that when they meet you, they will recognize you. You're not just gonna be a big mess. You're not even
Yeah.
gonna be cluttered.
Yeah,
You'll
the
just
the
be
cab
like
light metaphor is a perfect one. It's basically about, yeah, how you put yourself out there in the world, right? Yeah, it's how yeah,
yeah, and you don't really totally have control over it directly, but it changes because you feel better about yourself, being clear about what you want, and just kind of knowing that in your heart, it changes how you're perceived. And really quality people, when they see somebody who's like, "Oh, I don't know, I kinda have a boundary, but not really, I'll bend it for any reason at all." They're like, No, I'm not really attracted to
yeah,
that."
yeah, yeah, exactly.
I'm looking
Yes.
for somebody a little more, solid than
Yeah,
that."
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and it's funny, ever since also I quit smoking weed, I also kind of lost the attraction for the unavailable, men. I find it silly, I'm like, "What am I doing?" Wha what is this? This is a joke.
Yeah,
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 yeah, it's starting to
yeah.
feel a bit sad. Not
That's
that it's
good, I mean, that's profound. That's
yeah.
profound that it just shows up in your feeling and your attraction as change, that you're not forcing yourself or anything, that's a really good
Yeah.
sign.
And just when I go to bed at night, like sometimes I'm trying to imagine like a partner and I think, no, because we have all these the myths that you always debunk, the new age stuff. It's like, no, I'm an independent person. I don't want to visualize anyone. I don't want to visualize myself hugging anyone. I don't care. I'm independent. But gee, damn it, I do want that. But but I feel silly when I fantasize about it, you know? So it's weird.
It's a legitimate fantasy.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, yeah, and I'm somebody who I think fantasy can be taken too far as a way to dissociate and not deal with stuff. It's just
That's the
more
thing.
weed.
That's the thing.
Yeah, but a vision, let's call it a vision, a constructive vision where we recognize it's something that we want and we're actually prepared to take action to go in that direction and
But
not just
this is
check
a big
out.
this is a big takeaway actually for me from this is because I'm very much fantasy driven and I like that in my performance and what I do. But like the distinction between having a vision and a fantasy, I'm
Yeah,
gonna really think about that one
yeah.
because I love the fantasy, but it has its place. And funny, ever since I started doing drag, fantasy has taken it's helped me get off the weed. It's helped me get off so many things because fantasy has a place. I do it once a week in a video. Here's the fantasy, but I want to be real when the camera's off.
Yeah,
And like yeah, it's
yeah,
yes.
that's great. Yeah, I relate to that a lot too.
Oh, this is a very nice segue to the superficial part of being attracted to men, right? Like when I told you I was at the club, I went outside. And there was literally, it was like Sophie's Choice. There were literally these two guys there. Very handsome guy who's playing hard to get, clearly likes me, but is not going to do anything about it. And I was like focused on him. And there was right next to him, there was another guy having a cigarette, so sweet looking and looking at me with eye contact. And not very attractive, but classically, but just so ready and like just like liking me, and I was like, and I just went home. I didn't talk to either one of them. But I was like, yeah, this is a moment. This is where I want the superficial, but I want the real, but I don't know what to do with that. And yeah, those two sides.
It's a
Is
worthy
it
dilemma.
yeah. Is it stupid to want things that are like when you're looking for a partner that you want someone that you're not only attracted to, but that you find very handsome and all of those things. And
No, I don't think it's stupid, and I think you should write it down. Write down what you want, like, for real. Write down what you want. What are the physical attributes? And just knowing, like, you're not gonna necessarily get everything you want, but just go ahead and name what you want and be clear about that. The whole exercise of writing it down is just become conscious, become conscious of what it is, and that way you have a little bit more your radar for that person is awakened. It's just you're waking up your radar for that. And if they have some glaring problem that conflicts with your vision of who you'd really like to be with, you can just see it faster. So if
yeah,
somebody really good looking comes along and you're like, "Oh, that's my perfect kind of guy," okay, so one thing. He's
yeah.
shown you one thing, and it's
Yeah.
gonna take some getting to know you for any given person to see, "Okay, what about the other 200 things?" And you're never gonna get all 200, that's just silly, that's just commodifying people. But it's to be clear about what your desire is, because there were a lot of things that I was being very negotiable about, like, are they single?
Okay.
Oh, whatever, I can work with this. You know my
Yeah.
word crap fit, where you fit yourself to crap? You're just like,
Yes,
"Oh, I
yes.
don't know,
Yeah,
okay, so, so he's in the mafia and people with guns are always showing up at the house." That never happened to me, but just as an extreme example of something of, like, crap fit, just like, "Oh, yeah, yeah, I can work with that." It's like, "No, you can't." Like, write it down. And that was one of the things I wrote. I wanted somebody who was, like, law abiding.
yeah.
That was
Like, I
something
know
I had
we
compromised on before.
you remind me of one comedian, I wanna say it's, Amy Schumer, but, she says that, yeah, she's like, "Oh, I'm dating a guy in a relationship, so at least he's good with commitment, so that's a plus." He's a married she's attracted to married men, so yeah, that's so she thinks, "Okay, so he's not commitment phobic because he's married." You know? It's like, yeah, you try to crap fit, really.
Yeah, total crap fit. And so, sometimes writing things down and recognizing that you wrote it down, but you're sitting there looking the problem in the face, it when you're in the middle of that situation, sometimes, the longing for love or lust or whatever it is, or just because it'd be really inconvenient to get off the airplane right now or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
That sometimes when it's in your face, but at least it just helps you wake up and be conscious. It's like, "Okay, I'm doing it again. I'm doing it again," and not just go into a 5-year fog. and end up losing more years of your life miserable and unloved.
Yeah. And I think writing it down also helps you own it, right? In a
That's the
way.
point. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, to own it. Not to demand it from the universe, but to own
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is what
Yeah.
I want. Yeah.
And with a mentor maybe or a friend, evaluate at some point. It's like, "Okay, these are the things that really did fit what I wanted. These are things that I didn't expect and I'm not sure I can live with," and have somebody you can talk that through, because that's real. That's what every couple who commits is facing, is stuff that they're not sure they can deal with. They'd be lying to themselves if they were like, "Everything's perfect. It's exactly what I wanted," you know? Like, time will tell. There's always gonna be things you don't like about the other person, and so it helps to get a second opinion, like, "Am I being realistic that this is something that I can work with? Or am I crap
And
fitting again?"
where do you stand on this whole opposites attract thing? Like, is it about finding, a person who complements what you lack, or is that fantasy as well, or is it?
I'm not sure I have a good opinion on that. It seems like it goes different ways.
And it's
So
also, then I guess it's good to have be like very strict about what's non-negotiable, right? To be
yes, so you can make, like, 3 circles if you want. You could have more, you could have less, but 3 circles, and 1 would be absolutely non-negotiable. Um So for me, some of those were cannot have a drug or alcohol problem, must love my kids and be prepared to financially, lay down their lives for the family, including the kids. And those were some of the big ones. And I knew those would weed out like huge swaths of the population. And this is why we don't set boundaries, because we think if we weed anybody out, we'll never find one. It's not true. All it takes is one. And then the second circle is like important to me, but negotiable. And the third thing is nice to have. And I had stuff there like hair color, eye color, that
yeah,
sort
yeah.
of thing.
So interesting when you put it that way with those three circles, because then you realize you get to know yourself and what's important to you, what is
Yeah.
more important and less important, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
And then once you're dating somebody who's important to you and you think might be the one, you go back to this list periodically. And this is, I have this dating course. This is the very first thing everybody does is write this down. What's your ideal life? What's your ideal partner? And you put it away for a while, but you take it out again when you're maybe going deeper into the relationship or deciding whether you're going to move in together or get married. So you take it out again and you think, how am I doing? And then this huge temptation to start revising comes. But actually, revising is appropriate, but not revising on the non-negotiables. So that's why it helps to be clear, be really clear. This is not negotiable.
Yeah.
And a lot of us have had the experience of being kind of cast aside by parents, who ran off with some guy or gal and where kids were inconvenient. It's the worst kind of trauma. I feel so good that I averted that after being raised like that.
Yeah.
I knew that was a risk that I better watch out for. So that's something to think, just think about what are your risks? How are you going to unconsciously be just like your mom or just like your dad
Well,
when
I've
you
already
decide?
been like them, and I yeah, we're done. We're done. We're done playing that game. Yeah.
Bye, mom. Bye, dad.
Yeah. Bye bye. See ya.
See you for the holidays.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah. I want to hear what happens. I want to hear
Yes.
what happens.
I'll keep you updated for sure. But writing that, I do keep a journal. I have been for years. So, but I never thought about it in terms of like a partner and what I want in a partner. And yeah, I definitely want to do that.
Thank you so much for this time together, Indy. I've put a link to your YouTube channel down below. It's really fabulous and funny and poignant as well. And I wish you well. And do come back and tell us how you're doing. And when you meet somebody, we want to hear all about him. If you would like to do recorded one-on-one coaching to share on YouTube, you can contact me at hello@crappychildhoodfairy. Let me know what your question is about and put in the subject line YouTube coaching so my team knows to send it directly to me. If those of you watching feel like maybe you have been affected by childhood trauma and that it's limited your ability to find and keep true love in your life, you might want to take my relationship quiz. I've put a link to it down below in the description section. You'll also find links to my courses and, of course, Indy's YouTube channel. So all the goodies are down there below the video. You're going to have to click that word more to make it open up and see all the things available to you. If you love this topic of getting your cab light shining and preparing to find true love, I've got a video picked out for you right here, and I will see you very soon.